Hey, what's up everyone? This is Kevin from Hapayu Gardening, and today we're going to provide you with a big update on my summer lawn experiment to find out what is the best soil for raised garden beds. So it has been over a month since the last update on the vegetable garden, and as you can see, my vegetable garden has blown up. Everything from the corn to my tomatoes to my squash plants. They are all huge and producing. And my wife and I have already been enjoying a number of vegetables coming out of this garden. So for those of you who haven't been following along my season long experiment, basically in my 3 different beds, I am trying out 3 different soil mixes. In the bed on my left over here, I have a mixture of compost and topsoil. In my middle bed here, I am using Mel's Mix, which is 1 part Vermiculite, 1 part Peat Moss, and 1 part compost. And in the bed over my right shoulder, I'm using bag garden soil. I'm using a mixture of Miracle-Gro's garden soil and Nature's Care raised bed soil. So I'm growing a variety of vegetables. You can see I have some corn growing over there on the left. I have tomatoes growing in all 3 beds. I have some zucchini plants growing in the bed over on the left, as well as the one over my right shoulder. We've grown radish, we've grown lettuce, we're growing string beans, and we're growing a bunch of pepper plants as well. If you go on the internet and you look up what is the best garden soil for raised beds, and specifically for square foot gardening, which is what I'm doing here this year, you're going to read use Mel's Mix. But for those of you who have already used Mel's Mix or have looked into it, you know that's not cheap. So what I wanted to find out this summer is, hey, can I get away with using something else other than Mel's Mix in raised garden beds using square foot gardening? And the answer is a definite yes. So let's go a little bit into some of the individual vegetables, starting with string beans. With string beans, we have not seen any noticeable difference with the 3 beds. We have seen the same quality and quantity no matter which bed we have grown them in. So for string beans, it's hands down. It doesn't matter what kind of soil mix you have in there. For tomatoes, my tomato plants are growing great in all 3 of them. I have not added any fertilizer in any of these beds. You can see my plants are all thriving. Now with the 2 beds here where I created my own soil mix, I actually used compost from 3 different sources just to make sure that I have a nice diverse amount of nutrients to allow my vegetables to grow in. And you can see my corn is clearly loving it. My zucchini plant right next to my corn, we've already plucked out a zucchini that was huge, and we are about to enjoy it tonight, and I'm sure it's going to taste awesome. So I'm pretty confident in saying that it doesn't matter if you grow your zucchini plants in bag garden soil versus your own topsoil compost mix. My tomato plants, same thing. The tomato plants in all 3 beds are growing exactly the same. They're all growing awesome. If you take a look over my shoulder here, my cherry tomato plants, they are already over 6-7 feet tall. My aroma tomato plants in both my bag garden soil bed as well as my Mel's Mix bed look exactly the same. We've also harvested a lot of romaine lettuce this spring, and it was so good and juicy, and it really grew great in all 3 beds. The taste was the same and the production was the same. So with lettuce, like everything else, it didn't matter what kind of soil I grew it in. Now there are certain things you might want to consider when choosing what type of soil mix before just taking my word. For example, how frequently will you be able to water your garden? I was able to come out here and water every single day. I did notice that with the topsoil and compost mix bed, it took a little bit longer for that to dry out versus Mel's Mix, which definitely dried out the fastest. Also, how much time are you willing to spend weeding your vegetable garden? I will say that the topsoil and compost bed, I saw a lot more weeds growing in there. I spent a lot more time in the beginning before my vegetable garden took off picking out all these small weeds just to prevent them from growing up and taking over the garden. And one of the last things you want to consider is what is your budget? How much money do you have to spend? And if you are on a tight budget, Mel's Mix is definitely not the way to go. That was the most expensive one to put together out of the 3 beds. So that is the latest update. But it is still only mid-July. We still have another 2 to 3, maybe 4 months, depending on how the weather plays out. So there's a lot more vegetables to be grown. I will be sure to provide some additional updates later in the season, so if you are interested in following along, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button below and subscribe to my channel for more videos on gardening tips. Thanks for watching everyone. Until next time, happy gardening.